Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Legendarium podcast. I am your host, Craig Hanks, and over there he's Ken. Ken, hey.
I am Ken. This is
you
me,
are Ken. Ken is covering his 5-head, apparently. If you're watching on YouTube,
keeps going.
The thing is,
you take off the hat and it just
Ken
keeps going.
Ken has a perfectly good head of hair, but I think you're in your head now that you're. Ken, you just hit 76, 77,
63. Thank you.
Oh, okay. How old are you, Ken?
50. I'm 50 years
wow,
old.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. You just turned 50. Anyway, all right. So Ken is here, and we're joined by special guest Little Red Book. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Craig. How are you?
You know, not too bad. Not too bad, because we're about to do another episode. Another Redwall episode. And our final Redwall episode, which I'm kind of glad about, if I'm being honest, and I'll tell you why. It's not anything like, earth-shattering or whatever, but I'm kind of glad it's our last episode. But we're talking Mattimeo. Now, Mattimeo is I think it was the third book published. I think it went Redwall and Mossflower, then Mattimeo. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's right. But anyway, I'll double check. It was the third book in the Redwall series. So this one is where Mossflower was a direct prequel to Redwall, showing the coming of Martin the Warrior and his battle to liberate Mossflower Wood and all that. This is a direct sequel to Redwall, following Mattimeo, the son of Matthias from the first book. So that's the one we're talking about today. Before we get there, of course, I'll remind everybody to go to thelegendarium.com to check out a few things. I have something else to add today than normal, okay? Yes, you can check out past episodes. Yes, you can check out the calendar for future episodes, so you can read along with us. We love that. You can also get the links to Patreon to support the show and to Discord to join the conversation. But a fifth thing today is there is now a page open for the 2024 meetup here in Utah. This will be our 10th anniversary meetup. It will take place between February 23rd and 25th. And then the main event will be that Saturday, February 24th. There's a little bit of information on dates and whatnot. And we will populate that page with more information as we get it, as far as what's going to be happening that weekend, what sort of prizes or guests or events that we have going on. But we are busy at work getting that stuff set up for you. So go check that out. It's thelegendarium.com/meetup, or if you just go to the front page, you'll see it right up there at the top. So go check that out. It's free, by the way. So if you're local, you can come and just hang out. If you are, the reason I did this, Red's shaking her head. How dare you? How dare you make it free?
How the dare thing you is, something
I know that there are people coming, like Kiptan will be coming in from Maine, and who knows who's going to be coming in from Oregon, Washington, and wherever else. If you get here, I don't want you to have to pay another $50 to walk through the door. That's ridiculous. So yeah, it is. It's going to be free entry, but of course we'll have a tip jar, donation jar, whatever you want to call it. So that'll be there. Anyway,
tip heavily, all you people, like $50.
So we'll be doing that in February, and we hope that you'll come join us if you can. I don't have a ton of details on exactly what's going to be happening because those plans are still in the works. But what I can guarantee is that it will be a good time. I promise that. So if you are at all able to come out for a weekend, then please do so. Details there, thelegendarium.com/meetup. Okay, Mattimeo, the third book in the Redwall series. Ken, you got a recap for us?
I got a recap for us.
All right, let's hear it.
It's a good recap too. So
I'll be the judge of that.
Well, I shouldn't need to disclaimer that all of my recaps are fantastic.
I agree.
Thank you, Red. You can come here anytime. 8 seasons have now passed. Don't call them years because we're talking about animals with short lifespans here. But 8 seasons have passed since Matthias took up his mantle as the warrior mouse of Redwall, the heir to Martin the Warrior, and led the vicious Clumsy the Scourge to his death. That actually was was actually an autocorrect in the as I was typing this out, and I left it there because I just thought it was so funny. Clumsy the Scourge. So she fell over himself. Anyway, Life has been good over the past 2 years. Seasons. Matthias and Cornflower had a baby. He's growing up to be a spoiled, entitled brat. So what better way to teach the heir of the Sword of Martin a lesson than by allowing an old enemy to sneak into the Abbey, drug everyone, and steal off with Mattimeo and a bunch of other Abbey kids? Tale as old as time. Turns out that fox, Slagar the Cruel, is actually the old double-crosser chicken hound himself. You remember him, don't you? Double-crosser along with his mom. He tried to pillage and loot Redwall, set them out, or then sell them out to Clooney, and got himself snake bite to the face for his trouble. Well, he somehow survived that. Don't ask questions. And now he's back to take his unjustified revenge on Matthias and the Redwallers. Blames them for all of his troubles. Typical villain mentality. He and his roving band of upstanding slavers light off with the Redwall kids and a bunch of other neighborhood kids, which is good for the team of rescuers when they go after the bad guys and join forces with other search teams, including the wickedly coolly named Orlando the Axe.
I do. That is what a great name.
That
sorry.
is a fantastic name.
Orlando the Axe. That's great.
Yep. I got something to say about that. In the meantime, with the Abbey protectors all taken off, a Baltimore of ravens, I think that's what they're called, and other gutter birds decide it's the perfect opportunity to lay siege to Redwall. Luckily, the Abbey folk are all clever, and they use a series of tricks and tunnels and ghostly craftiness to and a healed raptor of their own, forgot that, to drive them all away and save the day. Yay. And it goes without saying, Team Matthias catches up with the Slavar the Cruel. They save the kids, fight about 1 million rats, liberate the slave town of Malcaris, I can't remember. Slagar dumbs himself to death like all of our villains in these stories. And the lesson learned, Mattimeo has found a newfound perspective and all is right with the world. Yay, we're back at Redwall. Things are good. End story.
Then very nice, very nice. Red, how did it go? How did you like Mattimeo?
So I was wondering why we were reading Mattimeo in the Temple of Doom.
Okay. Expound.
Instantly what I thought of, because you have this weird god thing that's instructing people to be enslaved and build something. It's supposed to be a kingdom, but it doesn't really seem like it's a kingdom. It's very weird.
It's a lava pit to hell. Okay.
I just kind of felt that way a little bit. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. The author is a good writer. He actually does something very interesting. In his writing, he writes just a touch above what I think these books are, the age group that I think this book is aimed at.
Okay.
He does some pretty complex sentences and lots of, actually. The sky had ceased its weeping over Mossflower. Gray clouds had started rolling back to reveal the powder blue vault above, and the warmth began seeping through to dry the woodlands as the sun continued its journey into summer. So there's a whole lot of phrasing and paragraphs and descriptions like that I think are just a little bit above. Like, I would give this to an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old. Just a little bit above it. Just pushes the readers. And I really enjoyed that part about this book.
Read that part for me one more time, just that sentence. Because there's something about the vault above. I want to get to that phrase.
Okay. Gray clouds had started rolling back to reveal the powder blue vault above.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Just
so
good.
I love that because it gives you an alternate understanding of the word vault, which we talk about vaulted ceilings, right? This is a word that we still retain this definition for, but we don't use it in everyday language. But you can get from context what the word vault here means, right? And I think I'm really with you on that. It's something that I have commented on in previous episodes, but I think it's exactly what you say, Red. It's just enough above that if you're a 10-year-old and you're reading this, you're not lost, but you're challenged.
Right. And I really, really enjoyed that about this story. And as an adult, it's fun to read because it's beautiful. It's just beautiful language. But the whole back to the Temple of Doom thing, there's like a lot of sudden murder in this book. Like
Sure, fair.
it's very whimsical, and then you have a fox shoving his employee off a cliff, or you have like that giant were rat.
Yeah. Oh gosh, in the pit.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's just like it. You know, I don't have a problem with dark fiction for children. I don't know that it would get published today because we're all a lot more squeamish than we used to be.
I maybe I'm not totally sure on that, but I think it's a fair idea to bring up. I'm not 100% sold on it, but you might be right. But I actually want to touch on that a little bit because it's something that we've talked about from previous books, but it really kind of finally at the end of this one, it made me go, you know what? Enough. Okay. Because what happens is to make the bad guys, he has them constantly just like murdering each other, right? Pushing each other off of cliffs or out of trees or stabbing each other in the back or whatever. This, so it's like death is present, but it's always the bad guys that do it. So when the good guys kill somebody, it's vague, it's in battle, and it's only kind of glossed over if it's described at all, right? The vermin took heavy losses or whatever, and so it's kind of implied that the bad guys finally they stuck them full of arrows. Yeah, go good guys, whatever. But that's only ever implied. And I'm going to jump to the finale of the book, or at least the finale of Slagar's journey in this book, where he dies by accident, right? Like it kind of like Sarmina does in Mossflower, where she drowns,
and Clooney does.
Does.
All three of them. That's what I was saying in earlier. Is that the main bad guy, the main villain of every single story has been vanquished by the good guy by accidentally doing it themselves.
Right.
So
Clooney
falls off the tower. Sarina drowns herself. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. There are a couple of reasons why I assume that this is the case, or why it might be okay that this is the case. I'm trying to put myself in Brian Jakes' head, where you don't want to de-sympathetic your protagonists, right? Especially for kids. Like, it's the old thing that was never actually quite true, but the old thing about like Batman never kills, that doesn't mean that the bad guys never die in Batman, but Batman never kills him, right?
I don't have to save you.
It's a bit, it's a bit like that. So you don't want your good guys to have to kill anybody, even though it's utterly justified in every conceivable way, right? But still, you're like, well, I'm writing this for 10-year-olds. I'm not going to have them kill the bad guy. So the bad guy will meet their fate another way. The other thing that it could possibly, and I don't know anything about Brian Jakes' religious background, but it does strike me as a way for somebody to potentially communicate the idea of providence, or karma, or something along those lines, where it's like, right, this happened to Sarmina, or this happened to Slagar because they're bad. And when you're bad things happen to you. Or, in the providential case, it's like, God will make bad things happen to you if you're a bad person. It's a simplistic moral, but maybe there's something along those lines. Either way, honestly, it kind of frustrated me a little bit. And this is what I was getting at the beginning of the episode, where I'm like, okay, I think I'm good on Redwall for our coverage of it. Because if you were to ask me, hey, what do you think of this book? I would say, for reference, see previous 2 episodes. That is what I think of this book. There's no difference. There's difference in the plot, of course, but even those are kind of minor differences in the plot. It's fairly formulaic, even now by the 3rd book. There are just, a few extra pieces of spice put into the mix. We can talk. I think we should talk about Mattimeo's journey from being an entitled brat to not being an entitled brat. There are things like that are different than previous books, and that's fine. But does that make sense? Like, it's how should I put this? Okay, my kids are 7 and 10, and they love repetition. As I shouldn't say all kids. Yes, almost all kids love repetition. They'll watch the same show, the same movie, over and over and over again. When I was 9, I remember going to my friend Adam's house, and all I wanted to do every time was watch Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey, because I was a decent and well brought up person. That's all I wanted to do every single weekend, right? And he got a little tired of it, but I never got tired of it. So if I'm a kid, if I'm 10, 11, 12, and I'm reading through the Redwall series, I don't mind. I don't care that it's repetitious. Repetitious? Repetitive?
Yep.
Let's go with repetitive on this one.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't care if I'm 10, but in my mid to late 30s, yeah, it does wear on me a little bit. And I am kind of done reading these books. Is that fair? What do you guys think?
I think it's fair.
I unloaded like 3 things on you. Can the bad guys kill? Is there karma in Mossflower? And do we like the repetition? Okay, there's a lot to talk about. Go for it.
So,
I
sorry.
think. Sorry, Red.
No, go ahead.
I think, like you were saying, I mean, these are targeted to children, and I like, by the way, that they are targeted a little bit above, or they're written a little bit above the range that they're probably targeted for. I imagine these are probably for late elementary school children, something to that effect. And they're written a little bit. Those are the kind of books I enjoyed reading when I was younger. I liked reading above my grade. And so I think it's good in that respect, for children to read above their grade. And I think it's going to hit on some topics that maybe kids can think about, like you said, Craig, I mean, is it okay for your heroes to kill? It's a common trope in movies, especially action movies. You'll see the good guys never kill animals, because they're the good guys. They'll lock them up, they'll chain them behind a fence, they'll do something, they'll trap them so they can't harm anybody, but they'll never kill the animals. Bad guys kill animals. Good guys are good guys. Same kind of principle.
Hey, I've seen John Wick. Yeah, I know how it works.
Yeah. So, I mean, you get it. So, I like that fact, and I like the fact that the Mattimeo, and this is a character that kids will probably relate to. It's like, oh, I'm a little kid too. Oh, I should have more gratitude. I should be more appreciative of the things I have, or whatever. And so, short answer, long. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. All right.
Red,
what do you think
about the character Mattimeo?
We've talked about 8 different things.
I know, and I'm just trying to follow exactly.
Go ahead and pick one.
So the character Mattimeo, it's not so much that he's privileged; it's that he resents the pressure that he is being put under. Like, he is supposed to be the heir, and he really resents that.
Ooh.
And he's angry at his dad, and
that is a really good point.
He learns how to channel anger in this story. Like, he snaps when they're being kidnapped, he snaps at his friends.
Yeah.
And then he learns how to channel that anger. And I think that people who have powerful parents, and we just recorded on another book for Green Team, people who have powerful parents have a certain set of issues because their parents are busy and they don't have time. And you're always being handed off to somebody else. And you are also expected to do the thing that your parents did. And that's what I got out of that character. As far as being done with this, I've only read this one and Redwall. And
you didn't read Mossflower? How dare you not follow along with the podcast? I will never forgive you.
Well, you can fire me if you want. The Rube Goldberg machine of getting to the prize is so annoying. But I can understand why kids like it. But
Are you talking about like with all the dominoes that have to fall for the resolution to happen? It's like
no,
it stretches your credulity.
no, it's this is how we have to find the sword, but there's all these weird clues about it. This is how we have to
Hmm.
find the old abbey, and there's
I love that
that.
stuff. I
I
love it.
understand why kids like it. To do it twice in successive books is, I was just like, seriously, you're going to use a tree because the tree could burn down in a forest fire. Like, why are we using a tree? Just tell them, give them a map.
Yeah.
Well, and not just that. It was so long. I'm like, oh my gosh, this
So
just
long.
keeps going.
Yeah. That's
How many steps is this?
we have to find the tomb of the abbess, and then we have
Right.
to figure. I'm just like,
Yeah.
seriously. I'm
A
sorry.
lot
that
of divine
bugged me.
providence that needed to be in place.
And as far as the religion thing, I think it has a very Catholic-esque feel, where Martin the Warrior is not God, but he's a saint.
right. Yeah. Or maybe Church of England. I don't know anything about
I don't
Brian
either.
Jakes'
I'm just saying.
background, his religious background. So
What
I
religion
know he was born in
employed abbeys?
Liverpool, but that's the best I got.
What religion is an abbey from?
Well,
There are
Either-
Protestant and Catholics.
yeah,
that both
yeah.
have
I'd say
abbeys.
I don't. That isn't a legit question. I don't know. I just know abbeys are religious type.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of abbeys out in the western desert of the United States. So
We have
and,
Hogans.
we have what?
Hogans.
Hogans?
You never heard that term? We'll talk about it.
What? Okay. All right. Well, Ken is apparently going to school me on my hometown soon. So
No.
that's great. No, I actually I want to go back to there's a couple things that we could talk about. Let's talk about the above grade thing, that this idea that they stretch kids. Because you guys have both brought up well, and I talked about it too, the idea that these are written just above grade level, so to speak, right? It's targeted at 10-year-olds, but maybe it's more comprehensible to a 13 or 14-year-old, that sort of idea. I want to kind of push back on that a little bit and just say that these are above grade now with our modern understanding of writing and reading and all that. This is I don't want to make this point too strongly because I am a big proponent of, hey, things change and that's okay. But it is the case, I guess I want to stress, and that's okay. But it is the case that things have changed and that kids take longer to be able to read more complex things. You can discuss whether that's the case in other areas. I'm not saying kids are not as complex now. It's just they have other things to grab their attention, video games and television and movies and comic books and things of that nature, where, I think a lot about when The Hobbit was published. The Hobbit is published for, I think it was Rainer Unwin who gave his review as a kid and was like, this book should appeal to anyone above the age of 8, whatever. And it's like, if you give it to an 8-year-old now, it'd be a pretty special 8-year-old who reads The Hobbit on his or her own and is like, oh yeah, no, I totally got it. That's an advanced reading kid. And the same thing is true here, where Mattimeo was published in 1989. Obviously that's not 1938, but the same thing kind of holds true where I think there is a change now in how advanced, in quotation marks, in scare quotes, we should say, how advanced kids are at reading at a certain age. And I think it has gotten further and further back age-wise. And so I guess my only point with that is when he published it, was it above grade? I'm not so sure. Maybe a bit, but maybe not as much as it would be now. What do you think?
I'm going to push back on The Hobbit. I think The Hobbit was written for their parents to read to the children. It was not meant for children to read.
Maybe. I mean, Rainer Unwin was the son of a publisher, so we can assume he had a lot of books, put in front of him.
I think that it's just that kids are not being taught to read correctly. That's what I think.
Oh boy, yeah.
We could have a full conversation about that.
A friend of mine produced a documentary that came out earlier this year, I think. It was all about how we've muffed teaching kids to read for the last 15, 20 years, at least, maybe
At
30.
least.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
I want to, you can cut this, Craig. I want to tell a story. I did not learn how to read until the 3rd grade.
Nice.
My mom got me glasses and she put me in a phonics program, and I was reading from kindergarten level until at the beginning of my 3rd grade year to at the end I was reading Chronicles of Narnia by myself.
Nice.
Just learning phonics.
It's amazing. The glasses thing. Like, oh
the
my
glasses
gosh.
too. That helps a
Once
lot.
you like, yeah. Once you figure out that a kid just is having a hard time seeing something, and therefore that's why they're having a hard time reading it, like, oh man,
but
it's,
it was
shocking.
the phonics. It was the phonics.
Oh yeah,
mostly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I consider me a giant proponent of phonics. I'm trying to remember. The whole word method is what has been taught for the last 20 or 30 years.
That's what I was taught.
Complete BS. We're going to keep this family friendly for the Redwall episodes. It's BS. It's garbage. And if you catch your school or your teacher using the whole word method, you have my permission to take them out of school. No, that's I'm joking. But teach them phonics at home.
If anybody who in the sound of my voice wants to know a really good set of books that I taught my children to read with, hit me up on the DMs on Discord and I will tell you.
Yeah, I've got a few of those. Anyway, I guess the point of all this is if there's a kid who's literally trying to learn to read, these probably wouldn't be the books for them. But after they've gotten through a few things, this will be fine.
For those of us who no longer have kids in school, can you give me the 10-second synopsis of what the whole word method is?
The whole word method is basically guesswork, where you give a kid a sentence, and they have to, you give them, they have to use contextual clues to figure out not what a word means, but what a word is, how you pronounce it, how you read it.
Give them the first and last letter and guess what's in the middle.
Yeah, kind of, something like that.
And if you have pictures but as soon as you get away from having books with pictures, I mean, you're done.
Yeah, we did.
This is a really good example, by the way, of knowing what a word is contextually, because you can pronounce the word and the vault word. The vault word. We are so off topic.
The whole that's okay, because there's just not that much to talk about that we didn't talk about in the last couple of books. The whole word approach teaches kids to read by sight and relies upon memorization via repeat exposure to the written form of a word paired with an image and audio.
No,
we did the
syllabic breakdowns with our kids when they brought home their reading stuff. We just.
Yep.
Boom, boom, boom. That's how I learned. That's how you're going to learn. And it worked well. And all of our kids read very well. So clearly I am the best parent ever.
My kids were reading by the time they were 4.
Oh my.
You win.
Oh my. Okay. All right. The other thing I wanted to bring up. All right. We talked about the above grade thing. Now let's actually get into this text and talk more about what's going on in Mattimeo. Let's talk about Mattimeo. You guys talked about how he's kind of a brat, he's privileged or whatever, but I want to talk about that as well. Is he privileged? Because it seems almost obvious, like, of course he's privileged, but the way their society works, is he really privileged or is he famous? And in 2023, when we're recording this, in 2023, America, or Western society generally, but especially America, let's be honest, if you are famous, that is privilege. That is currency, almost literally currency. Fame is currency, right? And so we read him, with our modern coding, we read Mattimeo as privileged. And that's why he's such a brat, right? But Ken, was it you saying earlier? I think it was a pretty astute point. One of you said that it's not that he's privileged. It's that he is like rebelling against expectations. No. Who was it? Was that Red? Red. All right. Sorry, my apologies.
That said that if it was that
here
astute,
I go.
So
erasing your masterful point. Yeah, it's not that
couldn't be true.
it's not that he has more, means than other kids in the colony or Warren or whatever we
Right.
want to call Redwall. It's that he has more fame, and that creates pressure. And so I think it's a small distinction, but potentially an interesting one. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that as far as wealth and whatnot, he's pretty. I mean, it's such a small community. I don't even know if famous is the right word. There's so few people in this community, and there's so few kids. It's just what I was getting at is that his father is very, very busy and very, very admired, and he's expected to be his father. And he can't be. He can't be his father. He has to be himself. And so,
well, let's say, think about it in human terms. If you're living in a community with 100,000 other people, then some people will be more famous than others, right? Okay, that's fine. Sure. Now, let's say you're living in a community with 100 people. You all know each other, but there's still, think of your junior high cafeteria or whatever. There's still the cool kids table. And if you kind of inherit that cool kids table, there are those expectations that go along, right?
I agree with that.
Yeah. Ken, what do you think about all this?
I think that Red is absolutely correct.
Right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Actually, I think saying he was spoiled and entitled was probably simplistic when I said it. However, it's not completely inaccurate. It's just they have what for the last 2 years could be seen as a very good life. They saved the Abbey, and everything has been banquets and chestnuts and fun and frolic, and it's a good life. And I think that this has been his entire life, not just him, but all of the other little kids. They've not known hardship. This is here's your hardship, and you're going to get it, good and hard and on a ship. It's.
I was waiting for you to say that. I was like, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it.
Yeah. So. Yep. So they're experiencing their first real adversity here, and in I think a little bit of a simplified for a 12-year-old style, who I won't say most 12-year-olds, because a lot of 12-year-olds have, problems and stuff, but my 12-year-olds did not. We always told them, you do not realize how good you got it. And that
is ultimately the antidote to that kind of bratty, privileged thing is perspective and knowledge, right? And that's what Mattimeo gains throughout the course of the book, right? He eventually gets some perspective to understand his actual position in the world, not just his perceived position in the world. Is that right?
I mean, if you've never been hungry,
right.
You've got like 99% of the population of the world beat.
I was just going to say, exactly. Like, to those listening to us right now, it's almost, probably not quite this stark, but it's almost as though if you have the means to listen to this podcast right now, you are privileged. End of story. It's just that's it. Period. Now, is that such a bad thing? No, it's not such a bad thing, as long as you understand that and recognize it and don't become spoiled and entitled the way that Mattimeo was at the begining of the book, right?
Right.
There. Okay.
That's why I do my gratitude lists every day, to remind people.
Oh, that's right. So yeah, Discord. So thelegendarium.com, click on the link to Discord, and then at the end of every day in the general chat, Red does her list of 5 things she's grateful for that day. That is it's funny, and it's a meme, and it's it's always heartwarming and fun and all those things, but it really is something that I think we could all do more of. So it doesn't have to be on Discord in public or whatever, but if you journal, make that part of your journaling every day. put a list of things that you're grateful for at the top of your journal entry, and then go on and write the rest of it. And it'll change the way you journal, or or whatever.
It changes the way you think about life. And it was actually I learned to do that when I was going through my divorce, and I took a grief class, and that was one of the things we had to do. Is remember to be grateful. Remember to be grateful. You have running water, guys. You are way ahead.
Yeah, I remember I was when I was a missionary in France. We went to eat dinner with this older woman. She was about 70 or so. So this kind of retiree woman who had nothing, and she made us lamb chops. And I am sure she spent almost all that she had to buy them, and then she cooked them. But when I use the term cooked loosely, like it was, they were literally frozen in the middle. This was dangerous food to eat, and all the same, I remember. So Mormon missionaries always have a companion with them, right? They go 2 by 2, and so I told my companion, who was younger than me, he was like, "I don't know, man." She'd walked out at some point. He goes, "I don't know, man. I don't think I can eat it." And I stared him down. I was like, "You will eat that, and you will tell her it was amazing." That kind of perspective. You will be grateful that for this thing that this person has done for you. You will, or I will murder you right
and
here.
If we spend the next 2 days throwing up, so be it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. We can pay for the medical bills. She can barely pay for pork chops or lamb chops or whatever. So anyway, sorry, we are going on tangents, but ultimately it's because
this is the perspective that Mattimeo has given us. It's allowed us to reflect on the things of our life. See, Brian Jakes is brilliant.
So that being said, I think we can go back to the text. And I just want to do, honestly, if we're done here in the next 5 or 10 minutes, that's fine. But maybe we can just bring up some favorite moments or quotes or whatever. And here's mine, or one of mine, is if you had asked me a couple years ago or a year ago, before we started getting back into Redwall, tell me something about Redwall. Tell me some of the favorite moments or characters or whatever. You know what I would have brought up, as my 4th or 5th entry into my favorite things was the Gwosim. And I had forgotten that they came into play in this book. The guerrilla, what was it? The Guerrilla Union of Shrews in Mossflower.
Oh, right.
There are certain groups or characters or events that really just grabbed my attention as a kid, and the Gwosim was one of them. The hares kind of generally were another. And then the crows. We've got General Ironbeak, the crows and ravens, or what are they? Rooks, I think they are.
Rooks
and magpies and crows and all that.
Yeah.
I think the only crow is the mystic. I think that all the rest of them are rooks and magpies. But
anyway, so what about you guys? What do you think you'll walk away with memory-wise from these books?
I just love that all the animals have their own dialects. And the moles are great, and so are the sparrows. And
so, fun fact. Sorry, were you going to go on? Red?
No, that's what I like. Although I got to say, I'm very confused about how some relationships happen, because shrews eat mice. In real life, that's a little confusing in places.
Well, yeah, You know what they also do? They don't talk. They don't wield swords. They, I think we're going to give a little license here.
It's a small thing. Shrews and weasels are very closely related, but weasels are always bad guys and shrews are always good guys.
Right. Yeah, you look at a picture of a shrew.
Shrew is such a sweet word to say.
Shrew?
Shrew. It's a cute word. It's a harmless word. Weasel is we've given that a mean connotation.
You think we haven't given shrew a mean connotation? It's just mean and kind of sexist.
Yes.
The
taming of the shrew.
Oh, I know.
Just saying.
I know. Believe me.
Yeah, no,
I get it. I'm just saying
fine.
it doesn't sound as mean or
we all have our own connotations.
Although of the similar animals, ferret, that's a great animal.
It's a ferret.
They're always the sneakies. They're always the sneaky ones.
I always think of Kindergarten Cop. It's a ferret.
I always think of Beastmaster because he had.
Yes,
yeah, there you go.
Beastmaster.
Yeah, that was.
I've seen that movie so many times.
I love that movie.
It's not good, but it's so much fun.
No, it's so bad, but I love it so much.
You guys, do we have anything else to talk about with the story here?
I don't think so.
I like this line. Can I just gotta read this.
Give me a good line.
High noontide sun beat down on Orlando the Axe. The mighty badger strode to the far reaches of the western plains, blind to the beauty of the flower cobs of grassland, which had turned green to gold. Orlando the Axe was following the fox. I'm like, oh, that goes on the list of good opening lines. That was a good one. Good job, Brian Jakes. I'll give you that one.
And now we know that Ken at least read the opening line of the book.
I did read the opening line, and then I summed up the rest. I'm just kidding. I read the entire book, and it was a book.
It was good. I enjoyed it. Can we riff on that for a second? I just want to go back. I already talked about the repetition point, but just because it's repetitive doesn't mean it's not good. You know, if
you're going to say repetitious again, weren't you?
I was. You know what? I was, and I don't want to talk about it. It was a very painful time in my life.
So repetition does not equal bad. You're right.
No,
and I enjoyed it. I mean, anthropomorphic animals are always something that is kind of intrigue, young me and the young me in my mind. So
yeah.
I love talking animals.
They're a good story.
I don't want us to fall into the trap of saying, that X entry into the Redwall series is inferior because it's repetitive. Of course it's repetitive. It should be repetitive. It was meant to be repetitive. And that's fine. If you took any of these books in isolation, we would have a lot of the same things, a lot of the same praise that we did for Redwall or Mossflower throughout the rest of the series. So,
I mean, there's only so many stories out there. And the fact is that we like John Wick and we also like Mad Max. And you know what I mean? Like there's like a certain part of your brain that gets pinged with those types of archetypes. That's why there's archetypes. Okay.
That's fair. No, I think that's absolutely fair.
Every story that follows the hero's journey is copying the last story that followed the hero's journey. I mean, by that same token. So,
yeah.
And we still read them or we still watch them.
Yep.
Because the hero's journey is timeless.
All right. Well, let's call it there. Unless anybody else has anything burning they need to get off their chest about Mattimeo. I will say, I'm glad I'm doing this at the end of the episode. We were originally going to do Martin the Warrior. There was at least one person, maybe a couple people on Discord being like, kind of grumbling that we had switched to Mattimeo. But as I recall, the person who made that complaint was not a patron. And you know who is? The person who asked us to switch to Mattimeo. So if you want to affect the books that we read, the series that we read, you'll have a much better chance
if we pay you.
If you go to patreon.com/legendarium. No, it was actually Panda in the first episode when we talked about Redwall. She goes, maybe after we finished recording, I'm not sure. She goes, do Mattimeo. So that's Panda's doing.
One last burning thing.
Okay.
These books have the best food porn ever. I love it.
Oh, we never even got to the food porn. I'm so glad you brought it up.
Let's take a minute.
Because this one is kind of bookended, right? There's food porn at huge food porn at the beginning and then huge food porn again at the end. Right?
Well, even the shrews are like making great food on the trail. They're like making these cakes and stuff.
It's like, where did you get the oven to make this cake?
I don't know. But it's great, and you can get a Redwall cookbook if you want one.
Yeah, we found the Redwall cookbook, I think, during our Mossflower discussion. Or maybe it was Redwall. I can't remember.
During our Redwall discussion.
Yeah, Redwall discussion. So that would be a fun YouTube series, I think, to do some Redwall recipes. That'd be great.
Redwall cooking.
Yeah.
Ooh, the Redwall cooking challenge.
Redwall recipes. Okay. Yeah. No. Anything else about the food porn other than
just that I love it and it makes me hungry?
It was.
It got me really confused as a kid because I was reading these books. We didn't have audiobooks at the time, right? And I wouldn't have been able to listen to them if we had. And so I thought that these little animals were eating something called pasties. And it was only later that I realized that no, that's what covers your nipple if you're dancing burlesque. and that pasties are in fact the thing that these mice are all eating. Stuff like that. A lot of little things where it's like,
It's a good audiobook, by the way. Just so you know.
yeah, I didn't listen to it. Yeah,
good.
was it pretty good?
It's good.
Have you? Did you guys realize that you can watch the entire Redwall animated series on YouTube?
I
doesn't
didn't know
surprise
there
me.
was an animated series.
Yeah,
There
three
is
seasons.
three
I think.
seasons. 3 seasons, and Mattimeo, I think, is season 2.
Season 3.
Season 3.
I think. It was season. Oh no. Sorry. This is. So Redwall was season 1. This was season 2, and then Martin the Warrior was season 3. Maybe that's why people wanted us to do Martin the Warrior. So because it would have followed.
But yeah, you just go search for Redwall series, and you can watch the entire series on YouTube.
There you go. And they're, kind of like the books. They're simple and childlike and pretty lovely, honestly.
Yeah. You want to unplug your brain a minute? Go ahead.
So ultimately, like I said at the beginning, I'm really glad that we covered a few Redwall books, and I'm also glad that we're done with them. I think it'll be nice to dip back into, maybe especially with my kids going forward, but I'm kind of glad we're done with them. So after this, I think the next Patreon, or it was GoFundMe. I think the next GoFundMe book that we're doing is A Wrinkle in Time. So that'll be really fun. I have not read that since I was, probably 13, maybe something like that. I was pretty young, and I haven't read it since, but I remember really liking it. Obviously, it's a classic for a reason. And no, I didn't watch any of the adaptations since then. So I'll be coming to it pretty fresh again, just armed with positive feelings, I suppose. Anyway, so we'll do that, and then we'll do a Game of Thrones. The opposite of Redwall, except for the food porn thing. So we'll do both of those if you want to follow along with what we're going to be up to later. All right, you guys, thanks for chatting for a few minutes, and thanks for reading these books. Red, it was nice to have you.
It was nice being here, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, I will just say it one more time. thelegendarium.com/meetup. That's what it is. Took me a second to remember. /meetup. And that's where you can RSVP for the meeting here in Utah. We would love, and I'm not just saying that because we want bodies. I would love to see you. I would love to meet you, or see you again if I've met you already. Please, if you have the means and the inclination, come on out. So, all right, everybody. See you next time. Have a good one.